going on, guys? Dan here. We had a question the other day based on one of our posts. Did a post about how it's simple to work out our calories, but it's our behaviours that are often our downfall, and that relates back to maybe not having any systems in place that help us get from A to B. So from where we are now to where we want to be. Now, numbers and data are cool, but far too many people get hung up on those numbers and on that data. So the caveat with this is try not to get too focused on the numbers, but data is good. Data works, especially for start points. It's really good for a start point. So what I'm going to do today, one of the questions that we had was, how do you work out your calories? How do you work out your macros? So what I've done is I've done some basic working out for myself, so that I can relate it back to this video. So as I say, we had a couple of people jump into our DMs and say, well, how do you do that? So this is what this video is about. So first things first, what we need to do. So you're gonna need a pen for this, or a pencil and a bit of paper, and a calculator, because it'll just make everything far simpler unless you're a maths whiz, and then you can just use your head. All right, so first things first, we need to take our weight. Now, in relation to that, the best time to take our weight is when we wake up first thing in the morning, simply because we're in a more fasted state. We've been asleep for 7, 8, 9 hours during the evening, and our body's in a more fasted state. And when it comes to weight, so weight loss versus fat loss are two very different things, because our weight can fluctuate multiple times throughout the day. And one of the things that will help our body weight to fluctuate pretty much at the start of the day is when we eat our breakfast. So the best time to do this is upon waking, when you're in a fasted state, you've been asleep for several hours during the evening. Now, take your weight in kilos. So for me, I'm 79 kilos right now. So on this day that I'm doing this video, I'm 79 kilos, bang on the nose. So what we need to do then is times that number by 2.2. Why 2.2? Because that's how many pounds are in a kilo. Okay, and that will give us our weight in pounds. Now me, for example, 79 times 2.2 is 175. So with this, what we'll do just to make it easy is we'll round it up or down. So if it's five or more, we'll round it up. If it's less than 5, we'll round it down. So round it down and 175. Now, what we have to understand on this is not an exact science, okay? So the only way you're going to really get those exact amounts is if you're in some kind of lab environment. Maybe you're an elite sportsman or an elite sports person, should I say, where you're in a more controlled environment where you're really deep diving into the numbers. So I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but we always class ourselves, so people like us and people like a lot of the clients we coach, we're average Joes. We've got husbands, wives, partners, we've got children, we've got lots of responsibilities. Not that elite sportsmen and women don't have that, but they'll be in a lot more of a controlled environment where this is their job, this is what they do, and they rely on this kind of thing. But for us, it's not exactly bang on the nose, but it's going to be good enough to get you results if the C word, you're consistent, and the S word, it's sustainable. So we've got our weight in pounds. What we need to do then is look at our activity level, and within that is our resting energy expenditure, our basal metabolic rate, plus our activity levels. Now, this is where you need to be honest with yourself as well. Okay, this is where you need to say, well, yeah, I am sedentary mainly throughout the day, and I don't really do any exercise, or I do 2 to 3 hours a week, or I do 3 to 5 hours a week, or I might do more. Okay, but mainly, in the main, will come between 11 and 13. So what we need to do, and what I've done for me personally, is I have times my 175 by 13. Okay, because I do around 5 hours a week, maybe sometimes more, but just for ease of example, I've times my numbers by 13. Now that gives me 2,259 calories. Now for me, that would be where I would stay and where I would maintain if I was to consume that amount of calories per day. Okay, so I'm not in a surplus, I'm not in a deficit. So that is the amount of calories that I would need to consume in order to remain where I am right now. So that's how many calories I would burn throughout the day. So I would need to level that out and stay exactly where I am right now. Now, mainly, we deal with clients who want to lose body fat. So in order to do that, they would need to be in a calorie deficit. Now, calorie deficit needs to be sustainable. That is the key thing to anything when it comes to nutrition, anything when it comes to fitness and exercise, has to be sustainable. Okay, so with this, what we tend to do is work within 5 to 15% of our calories. Now, for ease of example, again, I've just deducted 10% away from 2259, which has given me 2,033 calories. Now that will place me in a deficit throughout the day. So if we're talking a day-to-day basis, all I've done is taken 2,259, which was my weight in pounds, times by 13, and I've deducted 10% away from that, which has given me 2,033 calories. That puts me in a 10% deficit. So slowly over time, I would start to see my body fat come down, and I would start to see my numbers come down as well. Now, remembering that scale weight and body fat are two different things, and the science will tell us that 3,500 calories is roughly equivalent to 1 pound of fat. So we would need to be in a deficit of 3,500 calories in order, in theory, to lose 1 pound, or going the other way, to gain 1 pound. Okay, but remember, this is not an exact science, these numbers, but they're going to get you there or thereabouts. So 2,033 calories. Okay, that is me in a 10% deficit. First things first, we need to work out after that is how much protein we're going to consume throughout the day. Now, what we tend to do is we will tend to work on between 0.7 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight. Now, for ease of example, I've just gone straight on the nail with 1 gram per pound of body weight, which gives me 175 grams of protein per day. Now, when we're talking about our macros, the two numbers that we always get our clients to focus on are protein and hitting those daily calories. Okay, they're the two things that we need. Calories simply because they are the amount that we need within a given day in order for our body to function optimally. Now, we're not always gonna get that. That's just life. As I said before, we've got varying things going on in our lives which are going to impact that. Some days we'll burn far more calories than we consume, and other days not so much. Okay, but as long as we're doing what we can, when we can, as much as we can, you're going to start to see those results in the longer term. Okay, so what I do then, so 175 grams is I times that by 4. Why by 4? Because there's 4 calories per gram in protein. Okay, so 4 calories per gram of protein. So I times that number by 4, gives me 700 calories a day of protein. So out of that 2,033 calories, 700 grams of that or 700 kcals of that, should I say, would be from protein. Now, as I say with this one, you need to be realistic in terms of your protein intake. And it's the one element of everybody's macros that they will always struggle to hit. Carbs and fats will tend, in the main, to take care of themselves. We often get our carbohydrate sources and our fat sources from a lot of the foods we consume, whether knowingly or not. But it's a protein that's always a difficult one to hit. Even more so if we're maybe on more of a plant-based, vegan, vegetarian diet, simply because someone like myself, who I'm a meat eater, I can tend to get the numbers that I need from various sources like turkey, chicken, beef, eggs, fish, etc. fairly easily. Whereas a lot of plant-based sources come from things like beans, lentil, pulses, etc. You will have to consume a lot more of that in order to get the same amount of calories as you would do, or the same amount of protein as you would do from a chicken breast, for instance, which is a lot smaller in size. So in other words, there's a lot more density to things like beans, pulses, lentils, etc. And this is where I would talk about, if you need to, and only if you need to, we're huge proponents at FF of getting every single nutrient and calorie we possibly can from the foods that we consume, okay, rather than supplementation. But supplementation is something that many of us do, including me, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all, okay? So I use a fantastic vegan protein from, not that I'm vegan, but it just tastes amazing, from a brand called Awesome Supplements, and it tastes phenomenal in smoothie bowls, in protein granola, in oats. It's just absolutely delicious, and it hits the nail right on the head. And that just helps me to supplement my protein intake every day, okay, on most days. I can have it in yogurt, mix it in with some yogurt, etc. It goes great with even with a snack. But only consider that if you're not getting your protein, or you're not hitting your protein in the foods that you're consuming. So it is something to consider, but we'll always say, first things first, try and get it as much as you can from the foods that you consume, and mainly whole foods, unprocessed whole foods, okay? But if you can, there's absolutely zero wrong with it, okay? So don't be afraid of doing that if you have to. So that is my protein. Then we work out our fat. Now, roughly, we'll go for around 30% of our daily calorie intake will come from fat. Okay, that's the recommended daily amount, there or thereabouts. Now, the beauty of our proteins and of our carbohydrates and our fat intake is that we can manipulate the numbers. Okay, so if we need to, we can manipulate the numbers, because some of us function a little bit better with a higher fat ratio within our carbs to fats, whereas others function a little bit better with a little bit more carbohydrate in their diet. So it's entirely up to you if you want to manipulate these two numbers, but just bear in mind they'll need to add up to the same amount of calories at the end. And the main downfall to this is the fact that there is 9 calories per gram in terms of fats, but 4 calories per gram in terms of carbohydrates. So that's something that you need to bear in mind. But if you need to manipulate it, you're just going to need to look at the numbers a little bit more. So 30% of my 233 is 2033 calories, is 610 calories. Now what I do then is I divide that number by 9. Why by 9? Because as I've just said, there is 9 calories per gram of fat, and that gives me around 68 grams of fat per day in my diet. Now that's easy enough for me to hit, so I should have no problems getting that amount of fat in my diet. Now, as I say, if you want to, you can manipulate that number. So if you want a little bit more fat in your diet, then you can do by tweaking your carbs and your fats. We would say leave your protein alone and keep that number as it is. Now what we have then is the rest of the calories that are left over are my carbohydrates. So 700 kcals out of 2033 will come from my protein, and 610 will come from my fats, which leaves 723 calories for carbohydrates. Now some people might look at that number and freak out and go, oh my god, 723 calories from carbohydrates, oh my god, I can't consume that. You can. Okay, carbohydrates are our main source of energy. Okay, they are a huge component of our day-to-day lifestyle. Do not be afraid of carbohydrates. So all these things that you hear out there, and all the scaremongering and everything else you might hear, do not be afraid of carbohydrates. Okay, they are our main source of energy. Yes, there are other processes out there, so things like the ketogenic diet, where we're switching up our main source of energy from fat rather than carbohydrates. Nothing wrong with that, absolutely nothing wrong. The ketogenic diet works, and I know a few people who are doing it themselves, but there is nothing wrong with consuming carbohydrates. Okay, so don't be scared of the carbohydrates. All right, so that divided by 4. Why by 4? Because as I said before, there's 4 grams per 4 calories per gram of carbohydrates. Okay, so divided that by 4, so 723 divided by 4 gives me 181 grams of my daily calorie intake from carbohydrates. Okay, that is just some very simple, it doesn't sound simple, but it is when you've done it as long as I have. Simple maths to give you an example of how you would work that out. All right, so that's it. So if I was to go on those numbers today, they are the numbers that I would use. Take your weight, times that by 2.2, gives you your pound, gives you your weight in pounds. Times that number by 11 if you are sedentary and you do 0 exercise. Okay, by 12 if you have a relatively active job and you do 2 to 3 hours of exercise per week. By 13 if you have an active job and you do 3 to 5 hours of exercise per week, which in the main will either be times 12 or times 13. Now obviously what I mean by that, an example of a sedentary job would be sat down, maybe office based for the majority of your working day. An active job would be something maybe working on a building site, or even maybe in a supermarket lugging heavy trolleys around, shelf stacking heavy loads, etc. You're going to be a lot more active in your day-to-day activity than you are someone who's sat down at a desk all day. Okay, that will give us our what we call our maintenance calories. Then to be in a deficit, let's say for argument's sake, take away 10% of those calories. Okay, so I took away roughly 250 calories away from my total, which gave me 2033. Okay, or 220 calories roughly away. So 2033. That is me in a 10% deficit. Then I figure out my protein for the day, or my daily target, which I kept very simple and went for 1 gram per pound of body weight, which gave me 175. I then took that number and times it by 4, because there are 4 calories per gram of protein, right, which gave me 700 calories. So that's 700 from my 2033. Okay, then we worked out our fat, and that's roughly around 30% a day. 30% of your nutrient intake will be from the various sources of fat. And then that gave me 610 calories. I then divided that number by 9, because that is how many calories are in a gram of fat, which gave me 68 grams of fat per day. Then the leftovers are my carbohydrates. And who doesn't love carbs? I love carbs. Everyone should love carbs. So it's something that we shouldn't be fearful of, guys. Do not fear carbohydrates. They are our main source of energy. And that gave me 723 calories, 181 grams of carbohydrates. So 700 calories from protein, 610 calories from fat, 723 calories from carbohydrates, added together makes 2033 calories. Okay, so that would be my intake in a 10% deficit per day. So if I burn more calories than I consume, over time I will start to see my body fat decrease, I will start to see my body shape change, and I will start to see results happening in the longer term. Remember, this is not a magic trick, guys. As much as we love it, we're not Hogwarts. So this is over time. So that's why it needs to be sustainable. That's why we only take away around 10%. All right, so take away 10%. And that should be sustainable over time. All right, guys, so there you go. That's how you figure it out. So that is for you, Mandy, and also for you, Nikki. Hope it helps. All right, guys, any questions, just hit us up. Happy Tuesday. Have a great day. Big love to you all. Peace out.